everybody, and welcome to the Aggieville Alleycats podcast, where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. I'm Ace Edwards, right alongside
Connor Baltazar.
And welcome to this week's short weekly recap, but it does mark the official beginning of the K-State athletics year with the first official K-State sporting event, which I know that everyone is really excited for, mostly because, more or less what it signifies. But before we get into the two exhibitions and the one official match for K-State's women's soccer, do want to give a shout out and a thank you to the two supporters of the show, and that is Greg, Arthur, and Grandma.
Thank you, Grandma.
Thanks, Grandma. Really appreciate it. And if you want to have your name read out at the beginning of every single episode, please be sure to check out the official supporters link in our podcast and Twitter bios. But let's just dive straight in to the first. We can just kind of barely touch on the two exhibitions because I don't think one doesn't have stats, and the other was, well, let's call it what it was. It was a massacre. But the first two were up against Missouri State. Who knows what happened up against Missouri State? No one. Perhaps no one. But the second exhibition was up against Arkansas, and Arkansas has been a pretty consistently good soccer program over the past couple of years. So I don't think that you and I were expecting us to pull out a victory. But I don't think we were expecting the extent of what happened.
No, you're alone in that. I totally expected us to lose by many goals. And that's exactly what we did. So I don't really have anything else to say about that because they didn't actually upload stats where they said that they would. And I know that we lost by like 5 goals. That's it.
Well, I expected us to lose, and I expected us to lose by like 2 or 3 goals, not 5.
Well, that was very generous of you, Ace.
But in terms of games that actually count on the schedule, it's just the one up to this point, and that is K-State's home opener against Nevada. They opened the season at home. Fortunately, K-State falls 2-1 against Nevada, and the lot of this game just kind of comes down to, I don't want to steal what you were going to say, but there were times that K-State definitely looked better than they did last year, and there were also a lot of times where just bad luck took over, which, again, not really what you want, but it's one way to open a season. You never want to lose, but I don't know, Connor. How did this match make you feel?
It was a weird combination of feelings, a mix of not being surprised at all, briefly thinking that we looked a little better, swinging the complete other way, and ultimately coming out with, even if I do think there are areas that we do look like a better team than we were last year, I don't know how much it's going to matter if we're opening our season losing to a Nevada team that went 6-10 last year. So I pretty much have zero expectation. I already didn't have any expectations, but I'm not setting anything up here. I don't want to prepare myself for something that's just not going to happen. I guess a few things that we can talk about. K-State created a lot of chances in this game and probably should have scored more than 1 goal. They scored, period. That's an improvement on last year already that we're scoring. But we also saw like a ton of I think we saw close to 30 players for K-State play in this game, which is about the entire roster because you can start 11 and we got pretty close to playing 30 people in this game, which I know that the broadcast mentioned we were dealing with some injury limitations for some of our normal starters, which, that's unfortunate. That's tough. But we created some pretty good chances, particularly off of set pieces, and had several instances where we definitely should have gotten a goal out of an attempt. And had a couple of chances to equalize pretty late, including one run in the final 2 minutes. That was maybe our best run of the day, and a day filled with pretty decent chance creation for K-State, but just left it to the right. Yeah, just a day where it's really, if this team was a little faster, K-State wins this game, which that's kind of been the story of the decade for K-State soccer, I think, is if the team is a little faster, then they're at the very least getting a point out of this one. But just coming up short again.
Yeah, which it is unfortunate, but there were some encouraging things, mostly getting any chances based off of the set pieces, but that's really it in terms of actual things that have happened. So for the next, I don't know, maybe 10 minutes or so, we'll talk about the next two upcoming matches for K-State, both of which are happening next week, up against Portland State next Thursday and Gonzaga that Sunday, the 25th. And for the rest of this episode, just kind of want to spend 10 minutes because it is the official beginning of the athletics year. And I know that you and I have personally talked about how generally excited we are for this upcoming athletics year. So I just kind of want to go through sports that we're going to cover and just give people a little short blurb about what to look forward to for each of the upcoming seasons, and relatively short. So we'll start with volleyball. We'll start with volleyball because they have a lot to look forward to with not just Aaliyah Carter, but Anaya Clinton and a couple of important transfer pieces.
Yeah, I'm super excited for volleyball. It really is a shame that we have to start the athletics calendar with soccer, which is probably the least excited, I think, across the board we are for any sport. And a lot of that has to do with how excited we are for others. But yeah, volleyball has an exhibition coming up on the road at Wichita State here in a bit. That's in August 24th, but then they get right into it. And they have a lot of road matches at some tournaments to start off with. So they don't have a home match until September 12th. But I'm really looking forward to them getting back into the swing of things at home in Morgan Family Arena, because this should be a team that competes for postseason, because this is a team that, despite a really rough start last season, put themselves at the very least in the conversation to make the postseason tournament, which I thought was pretty impressive in of itself.
Yeah.
So if they're able to maybe start off a little bit stronger this year, then that could really put K-State in a great position down the road. But it's going to be a really fun volleyball season, I think, for K-State. And on top of that, they do have a couple of matches that are going to get televised on national TV on ESPNU. They have, I think it's Oklahoma at home on September 22nd, and then Iowa State on the road on October 27th. Now, those are the two times that they'll be available on ESPNU. Every other game, I think, is on ESPN Plus. But yeah, I mean, this should be a big season for K-State volleyball. The one thing I'm worried about is replacing Mackenzie Morris, because that is a huge loss on the defensive back line. But I think we do have a pretty impressive team otherwise. Obviously, Aaliyah Carter's back, and Nia Clinton is back as well. Pretty much the entire team from last year's back, save just Sydney Bold, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, I agree. It's going to be a really exciting volleyball season. Also, apologies for the numerous noises that Wunkus is responsible for, and also nearly knocking over a lamp in the background. So Yeah, I'm really excited for volleyball, and I'm someone who, full disclosure, didn't really follow K-State volleyball for quite some time, and like they've made it very, very fun to follow them and cover them on the show. Next up, we'll do football. I think football is always going to be exciting, no matter like you could realistically expect a team to go like 6-6, and it would still be an exciting year just by virtue of it being football. And that's not me saying that I expect K State to go 6-6. I that's not my expectation. I think they're a lot better than that. But I think the team will be a lot of fun just by virtue of experience on defense, a lot of speed, and a lot of talent on offense. And I feel like that's the one that we can probably say the least about because we have an entire season preview out for it. So
Yeah, I honestly I didn't think we were going to cover football because we've covered football ad nauseum at this point, and there's just nothing new to really say that we haven't said before at this point on football.
yeah, women's basketball. I'm still gonna save that really annoying rant for later, but trust me, it's coming. The really annoying you should be excited for women's basketball rant is incoming very quickly.
Yeah, that'll get its own preview episode at some point. So I'll leave most of my thoughts on until then. But it's kind of coming up. That's in November, so that's less than 3 months away.
Yeah,
Till the season begins. So that's going to sneak up on us, kind of like football is right now. Football is kind of like, I mean, we're about 2 weeks out from K-State playing its first game. So
yeah, and same story with men's basketball. Though I will say I am more excited for women's basketball than men's basketball, which again we'll talk about that on the rant. It's not even a rant; it's more like a rambling of excitement, I guess. But outside of that, you still have baseball, which we talked about a little bit. They're going to be a really young team, going to be pretty exciting. And anything that we've missed?
I'm going to be keeping an eye on the track sports this year with the brand new coaching staff. Geffert seems to have a lot of energy for track. Cross countries in the fall, and then there will be like indoors for the winter, then outdoor for the spring. So I'm going to be keeping an eye on some of that stuff. Just seeing if there's any major changes, if we bring anyone in, because we haven't really covered track all that much on this show, which Casey historically has been really good in that department, but they've been decent, but in the run of this show, they haven't been like excellent, I guess. So I'm looking forward to maybe a track renaissance here at K-State, but we're still kind of a ways away from really hitting track season, even though track is technically happening the entire year, just in various forms.
Yeah. But all in all, I think it's going to be a really, really exciting athletics year. And that makes for a really, really exciting, show to run because, we've done the show when K-State has just kind of been aggressively okay at times at different sports. And I'm not going to say it's not fun because we wouldn't do it. The show would not have survived this long if we didn't have fun doing it. But I'd be lying to say if it isn't sort of on another tier when the teams you're covering are really good.
No, I completely agree. Because, I mean, the first season that we covered K-State, I mean, it was football was good but not great that year. And that 2021 season, men's basketball, that was our final year Bruce. So there was mostly downs, a few very random ups, but mostly downs. Women's basketball was pretty solid that year, but highlighted with the Aoka Lee. But it really doesn't compare all that much to some of the years we've had since then. And this year should be another really high level year for K-State.
Yeah, one could say that every single year that Aggieville Alleycats has existed, the athletics program, like the athletics department as a whole, has improved on the aggregate for success?
I think that's probably a fair thing to say. Uh, Particularly, I think this year there's some interesting arguments for it, particularly in the aggregate, because football, even though it was, I think, ultimately a bit of a disappointing season relative to what we wanted, not necessarily a bad season, just we didn't. It's really hard to like say that like you had an exciting season when you don't repeat winning a conference championship. Like that's just a hard standard to follow. And then men's basketball didn't live up to what we were hoping for. Although they made some really exciting portal moves in the spring. Women's basketball hosted a regional. State baseball won a regional. So this was a really exciting year. And volleyball also on the back half of their schedule, they kind of went on a tear, and they were really just dominating at home there for a while. They were like must-see TV there at the end of the season. So it's definitely, I think, on the aggregate, kind of improved over time. Even stuff like recruiting. It seems like recruiting's gotten more exciting as we've been covering it. Because, I mean, when we first started, I mean, we were like over the moon about like Tobi Osunsami was like the number one recruit that we got in the climate era, in our opinion. Like he maybe would have made the top 10 the next year. Like so
You would have had to claw to probably get into the top 10, honestly.
exactly. Like so I think you're onto something there. That year over year, things have been getting even better for K-State, and this year could really be the culmination, I think, of a lot of buildup for a few sports. Like men's basketball is gearing up for a big season. Women's basketball is gearing up for a big season. Baseball should, at the very least, be a really fun team. Volleyball, they're going into year 2, and this should be a big year for them. Football should have a big year as well. There's going to be a lot of excitement and buzz around K-State sports this year.
Yeah, I really couldn't have said it any better myself. And also, you and I have officially confirmed it in the consensus that we are the reason why K-State athletics has been improving so rapidly through our consistent commitment to okay content.
I wish that we would get cut a check from the athletic department, since we clearly play a pretty big role in the positive trajectory here. So, I mean, it's not a coincidence, I don't think.
No, but you and I will continue our service because not because it gives us monetary gain, but because we love the Cats. And most of all, we love America.
Are you announcing your run for president, man?
Well, according to Scott, you would be the one to run for president.
I disagree, but
You have any final notes before we sign off on this short episode?
no, I don't think I have anything else.
All right. Well, I'll leave off by saying start looking for the preview for the first football game, because that'll be coming up within, obviously, before the game, but just keep your eyes open for it because we're really excited to make it. But right now, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. If you want to follow or contact the show, you can follow us just about anywhere at Aggieville Alleycats. And if you want to email us, we're AggievilleAlleycats@gmail.com. If you want to follow us on a more personal note, I am at ACEdward00.
I am at Connor Baltazar, capital C, capital B.
And if you want to support the show financially, please be sure to check out either the supporters link or the merch store, both in our podcast and Twitter bios. But most importantly, thank you all for listening to this episode of the Aggieville Alleycats podcast. Where come rain, shine, or anything in between, we're here to deliver to you the Kansas State sporting news that you so love. Stay safe, Alleycats.